Hello, welcome. Nice to be with you all. Yes, beautiful. So lovely to be here. I thought I'd start tonight just with a little bit of a funny story. Um, the other day, it was Friday night, and I was out with the family. And a big night for us is, if we're not camping, big night for us is a trip to the supermarket. And so that's about as wild as it gets. We were out just being wild, my wife and my little girl and I running up and down the aisles. And I think I was taking them to get them a treat or something. And so we're at the supermarket and I'm walking down the aisle and I'm starting to walk down the aisle. My wife and my daughter are off in a different part of the market. And this lady kind of cuts me off a little bit and uh, she puts her basket down and I say, "Oh, excuse me." And she keeps walking down to the end of the aisle. And right about that moment, my wife came and joined me in the aisle. And I said, "Hey, we were looking for some enchilada sauce or something." And I just messing around. My daughter was screaming at me. And my daughter plays this game where she just takes stuff that she wants to buy, like candy and this type of thing. And she just throws it in the shopping cart or the basket while we're not looking. And so I didn't have a basket. My wife had the basket, and I just grabbed a couple things. My hands were getting full, and I threw it down in our basket. And then I looked in this basket, and I said, I'm just gonna say what I said. I said, "What the hell are these chips doing in this basket? Who's buying these chips?" Because again, like some of you probably don't understand what it's like for me to be a father. But sometimes I just feel like I have these girls just yelling at me all the time. So sometimes I hoot and holler and yell back at them. And we're just having like a good old time. So I pick up these chips. They're like black chips. I don't buy black chips. Like there's black, like sometimes there's blue corn chips, but these things were black. And I was like, I don't know what these chips are. Who the hell's buying these? Starting to yell at my daughter and my wife. With the prices nowadays, we buy all organic food. I'm not going to spend $9.85 on a bag of chips, and so I'm yelling at them. They're yelling at me. "What are you talking about? Those aren't our chips." And I'm like, "What the hell are they doing in our basket?" And I look and I realize my mistake. This is not my basket. I took my food that was in my hands, threw it in some lady's basket. I'm picking up her food. I'm yelling at my daughter and my wife, "Why are we buying this food?" It's just, and then, the lady and her husband, they're looking at me and they just start bursting out laughing. I'm like, "Oh, they're your chips. They're your chips." I'm like, "Y'all buy whatever chips you want," and it was just hilarious. It was hilarious. The point being here, there is a point to this story, is we all get confused sometimes. We all get carried away. Sometimes we think we know something. Sometimes we think we know something, but we don't. But we don't. And of course, this is a massive part of this path of spiritually awakening. Like we are waking up out of that which we think we know. Waking up out of that which we think we know. And if we give ourselves permission, we begin to step into this vast, spacious state of awareness. This vast, spacious state of awareness. But even then, when we rest in a place of vast, spacious awareness, sometimes we get really confused because our feet aren't fully here on planet Earth. They aren't here fully on planet Earth. We all make mistakes. We all get confused. Now, in the last couple of weeks, I was inviting us to look at this question of how we other each other. It sounds like some kind of Dr. Seuss book. How we other each other. How we other each other. How we put each other in this category of the other. And we may think we know something about the other. Like I thought I knew what my daughter was up to. Throwing stuff in the in the basket when daddy wasn't looking. And she was not doing that. Now, she did do it a couple minutes later. She did do it a couple minutes later. And we had a good old time, joking about it. But sometimes we think we know something. And part of being spiritually awake is having the humility to look and see, do I know all that I think I know? Do I know this for certain? Because one of the things that happens is when we have certainty within our egoic sense of self, it creates a sense of solidity in our mind, in our body, in our psyche, in our experience, where there is no room for anything else. There's no room to see the truth of a situation. The other day, I was at actually the farmer's market with my little girl, and it's one of the, it was a lady there selling flowers, and it was one of Ani's teachers from the past. It's like her preschool teacher or something. She didn't really go to preschool. She went to, she went to go play in school for, it wasn't really school, it was just playtime. That's what it was for, 6 hours a week. And that was my daughter's experience at preschool. But anyways, the preschool teacher was selling flowers, and she saw my daughter walking. And so she came up and she gave my daughter a flower. And, my daughter was being shy. And I was busy telling my daughter, like, hey, make sure you tell Miss Tracy, thank you. Thank you. And in my busyness of trying to be a good father, my busyness of, trying to invite my daughter to be courageous, well, I missed something quite beautiful. I missed the gift that was given. I got it here with me. Just this absolutely beautiful flower. And I wasn't fully there in the moment for the flower. I was there in a role. I missed just this, to see the intricate beauty of this flower, what was actually being given, what was being offered. What was being offered. And this is, this is part of life. This is part of being human and being divine, is this paradox. It's hard, it's difficult to be fully awake, fully present. In fact, we will fail at this again and again and again because of our roles, because of our sense of identity, because of the things that we think we know, because of our bias or our political bias. We miss what's actually here, what's actually happening. And so I thought tonight we'd start a little bit just by closing our eyes and just beginning to play this game right now as we feel inward. And we ask, what is actually happening right now in this moment? What's happening? And so, of course, it's always difficult to be present if we're busy fighting, if we're busy resisting, if we're busy saying, I know what he's going to say next. If we're busy thinking about the future or the past. And so in this moment, I'm going to invite us all just to stop. And put everything down. Put our thoughts down. Put our questions down. Put our seeking down. And just noticing in this moment, what is here? What is here in this moment? And some of us have a bias where we focus on the human things that are here, that are out of alignment. So we focus just on tension, negative thoughts, or things we don't like about this moment. But I'm asking in a total way, what is here? What is here in the space of your mind? And what is here that is actually the mind? What is the experience of the mind? So what are the contents of what is here? And what is the context of here-ness? Here-ness. And so I could say that differently. What do you notice in your mind, and what do you notice as your mind? What do you notice in your heart? And what actually is the heart? What's arising in the heart? If there's emotions, if there's pain, if there's tension, if there's someone we need to forgive, there's old painful memories, that can be the the contents. What is the context of the heart? What actually is your heart? How big is your heart? How big is your heart? What is the fabric of your heart? What's the fabric of your heart like? You tell me about the beauty of your heart, the immensity of your heart. Or can we allow the immensity of the mind, immensity of the heart to both be here, to acknowledge both simultaneously as one? The spacious nature of the mind, the infinite nature of the heart. And then as we feel even more deeply and allow ourselves to be more inclusive, as you feel into the lower three centers, the solar plexus, the hara, the pelvis. What's here? Like what's with the contents that are here? Is there tension here? The places you could relax more fully? Is there kundalini that's here that's wanting to flow? What is the direct experience of the abdomen? So, of course, anywhere in the body that there's tension, we relax that because it's hard to open to your direct experience. We're simultaneously resisting. And so, with each and every breath, we're feeling, allowing, including the contents as well as the context. And so, what is the experience directly of your power, of your hara, the groundless ground, of the self, the capital S self? What is your experience of your divinity? Of your divinity. And so from this space of being open in mind, open in heart, open directly, the belly, the ground of being, in this experience, melting into the hugeness of your divinity. I'm going to ask you a question. Where is your egoic identity out of control? It's a fun question. Where is my egoic identity? Where is it out of control? Where is it lost? Where is it confused? Where, how? Is it greatly biased? And I invite you to see if you can stay in this vast view and to have just a gentle sense of humility about your human self, the human character. The human character. Where is the human character out of alignment with truth? Where is the human character biased? Biased. Where do I hold on tightly to being right? To being right. Am I willing to see how I play the other game? Those other people are bad, are wrong, are misinformed, are uneducated, are ignorant. And so whether that is very overt within you or just a little something, I invite you to see if you can find it. The ways you other. Sometimes it's the other people have all the friends or all the money or all the support or all the love, and I don't have any. Sometimes we other people in a way that they're all better than us. Sometimes we other people, they're all worse than us. Sometimes we other people from our political viewpoint, our nationality, our ethnicity, our race, our gender, our whatever. Our age. Those millennials, we need to get them. We need to get them. And so just noticing the hugeness of awareness, the immensity, the love, the vast compassion of the heart. And then I'm going to invite you to notice our bias toward something and against something else. Our bias. The way we play the other game. The way we need to be right. The way we need to guard and defend. The way we separate ourselves. And if you look and you see, assume there's a number of things that have come forward. Well, these things, these areas, these places, these egoic beliefs or thoughts or identities or walls, or judgments. This is our evolving edge. This is our evolving edge. This is where we invite the grace of God, the intelligence of God, the beauty, the divinity, the compassion of the Buddhas to enter. This is the place we need to more fully awaken. These are the places we need to more fully awaken. And so I invite you just to feel into your belly, feel the strength of your belly, the love of your heart, the clarity of your mind, and just to see what came forward, and to acknowledge, to commit to opening more fully to the will, the intelligence, the movement of the divine in you and as you. In you and as you. And as we begin to walk in this direction, you can open your eyes if you like, but as we begin to walk in this direction of humbly acknowledging, here is my evolving edge. Here is where I've been a fool. Here's where I get carried away. And I love it that, I was running around Friday night like a madman at the natural grocery store, taking someone's groceries, yelling. My kids, my wife, who the hell is putting these in the cart? And laughing hysterically when I figured out that I was the fool. I was the one. This is my evolving edge. Getting carried away. Getting carried away. The process, the difficulty of being a father and raising a wild child and having a wild child within my own self, my wife being wild. We're all pretty wild at my house if you get to know us. So it's this willingness to see where we're wrong, where we're confused, where we get carried away. It's these little steps and these big steps. Like if any of us could just step back enough and see how much of my egoic identity, how much of it is rooted, is guarded in being right. In being right. We would realize, oh my Lord, this is not the way. This is not the way. The more righteous we are, the more we think we know, the more walls we put up, the more fully we shut down to the grace of God, the intelligence of God. The more we shut down to being awake in this world, open in this moment. So it is such a gift to give ourselves. Such a gift. To not have to be right. To not play the other game. And when we see it, when we find, oh, I'm playing the other game, like I'm doing it right now. I'm doing it right now. I am actively creating division in the world. If we want to fall into alignment with God's will, with God's plan, with God's intelligence, if we want this world to change, We can't hold on tensely to this idea that I am right and you are wrong. I'm on the right side of history. You are on the wrong side. You dirty Trump supporter. You dirty sleepy Joe Biden supporter, whatever it is. Poor Joe Biden. That fella, I'm not certain he's going to make it. I'm not certain he's going to make it much longer, much longer. There is this beautiful, beautiful quality of redemptive love that begins to take root in our lives, the lives that take root in our community, in our world, in our families, when we are willing just to be open, just to listen. And to begin to step in the direction of unity, of love, of compassion, of listening, of empathy. Like our world, now more than ever, when it is so utterly divided, needs this quality of redemptive love. The willingness to forgive our quote unquote enemy, to forgive our neighbor, to forgive ourselves, to actually see and hear and listen, to see and hear and listen to what life is trying to show us. This quality of redemptive love will only come online if we are willing to first tolerate each other. Like that's a big thing in this day and age. We can't be canceling each other. We have to learn how to tolerate each other again. And then beyond tolerate, to listen, to hear, to see each other, to see the absolute beauty. Like I just keep staring at the beauty of God's creation. And this beauty is in all beings. Is in all beings. Now, of course, some beings have really hard exteriors. Some beings are deeply confused. Some beings are violent, lost in mental illness, or just lost in their animal nature, lost in their own heaviness and pain and trauma and confusion. So they make it a little difficult. Their life makes it difficult for us to see their beauty sometimes. But I can remember, I've told this story before, but I can remember I was a young therapist, and I had this thing about predators. Predators normally being a male who preys on children, so that type of predator. And I apologize, just I have to censor my words sometimes because YouTube gets mad at me. So sometimes I say things that come out like really awkward. Last week's Satsang, I didn't even post it because I knew YouTube, there's certain subjects you're not even allowed to talk about. And anyways, but I had this I had all these thoughts around, around predators. And one day, they came into my office, and this young fellow, he sat down in my chair, and I just asked him, well, what's going on with you? And what's going on in your life? And why are you here? And he sat down in my chair, and it was funny because just like it must have been a couple hours earlier, I was ranting with one of my old friends. Like we were both in our kind of like fatherly role, fatherly context about, what we think should be done with all the predators out there. It's like, what the hell kind of person are you? And it's sometimes I'll say this, the good old boy in me kind of comes out, and it was one of those moments. I was just ranting with a friend. We were both fathers, both had young kids. And then God did this beautiful thing. God brought the person, the other that I was busy going on and on about. Willie Nelson and Toby Keith. They sang this song together. It's a great song. I love it. I think it's called Beer for My Horses. It's talking about rounding up all the bad guys and sending them back to their makers, to their maker, to the maker. Getting a tall oak tree, and a rope, and sending them back to God, and God played a game with me. Like I was busy othering somebody, and then God sent me that person. And they sat down in the chair across from me, and this poor guy, he just started crying and crying and crying. I said, hey, what's going on with you? Like, what is going on? What's in your heart? What is here that wants to be unburdened? Now I'm sounding like a priest, like receiving confession. But that's often what my job is like, or sometimes what my job is like, is people want to confess. And he confessed, and he prayed upon, these young kids. He did it actually when he was a young kid. And I saw that he was deeply sorry. Deeply sorry. Deeply sorry. And into the room descended this redemptive love, this quality of warmth, this quality of absolute forgiveness. Certainly wasn't me forgiving him. It was God forgiving him. Life forgiving him. When we step back far enough, from a non-dual context, we see that God has made all the causes and conditions of this world. I've said this often. In my world, there wouldn't be physical intimacy. In my world, we would just grow up out of the ground like trees. That's how Craig's world would be. There wouldn't be any of this opposites and this preying on each other and all that. Like any of that. We just grow up out of the ground like redwood trees. We'd just be radiating joy and strength and beauty and happiness. But in God's world, God created desire and hormones and emotions and puberty and attraction and strength and weakness and overwhelming emotions and addiction and powerlessness and power. And just we have the play of opposites in this world. And of course, from an evolutionary enlightenment perspective, we wake up and we walk in the direction of that which is higher. we wake up and we walk in the direction of that which is higher. But for many of us, before we have awoken, how do you say that? Before we have realized the depth and the truth and the beauty of our divine self and discovered our power and our unconditional love, most of us are to a greater or lesser degree at the mercy of our minds, our emotional nature, our desire, our hormones. And we've made great mistakes in this world. And we've made great mistakes literally because the machine we were given, like the mind we were given, the body we were given, the conditioning, like our parents were not perfect. And because this machine is not perfect, this world is not perfect, our conditioning, our parents, our education wasn't perfect. Because we weren't born perfect Buddhas in an outward manifest sense. We've all made great mistakes. We've all been deeply confused. And in response to this, the divine has graced us with this beautiful thing called redemptive love. When God looks out at us, God is not a judgmental God. God looks out at us and sees and knows, of course, that God, like say, I'm God, like I know that I created this world. I created people. I created flawed beings. I created an evolutionary world. I created hormones and desires and confusion, and I created the human condition. God knows that. We are already forgiven. And yet at the same time, remind us all that, of course, if this world is going to change, if we're going to change, if we want to be happy, if our community is going to be happy, if this world is going to be happy and healthy and free, we have to choose that which is higher. And so this is the paradox. This is the paradox of free will, is we do have some free will. And then there's part of us that, that is just a slave to the unconscious. And spiritual awakening, enlightenment, is this path where we are walking in the direction of a greater truth, a greater wholeness, a greater unity, a greater love, a greater power, a greater intelligence, a greater intelligence. But this greater intelligence will not come online, will not be able to live through us if we already think we know the way. If we think, I am right and you are wrong. If we think our one and only party, our one and only religion, our one and only philosophy or dogma is going to save the world. Well, a great chance we're totally out of alignment. In fact, beyond out of alignment, we're just closed off. We're closed off to the intuitive guidance, the evolutionary flow of life. Of life. And if we're deeply honest, like so many of us are so closed all the time. All the time. But if we remember the teachings of forgiveness, the teachings of surrender, if we remember this beautiful Hawaiian prayer, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, and I love you. If we remember this greater spiritual truth, we step into this realm of redemptive love and we are cleared, we are cleansed, we are healed. Our heart is opened again. It's opened again. We come into alignment with that which is higher. And if we close off our hearts and we say, you are wrong, you are bad, because you voted for somebody different than me, because you believe in something different than me. Because you are an idiot and I am not. That's like, because you're an idiot and I am not. Like, how many of us do that unconsciously? Just look out at the world. You're an idiot. Get out of my way. This is mine. we human beings, adults, act like kindergartners in this world. You should have seen this kindergartner I saw at the natural food store the other night. Ranting and raving. Taking the food out of someone else's cart. And so we have to smile. We have to laugh if we want to be awake. We have to have a sense of humor. We cannot hold on to our beliefs and our identity so tightly. So tightly. So tightly. We have to be willing to listen to the truth. There has to be room and space within us so we can hear it. We have to forgive ourselves and the rest of the silly crackers here on planet Earth. We have to forgive each other for being human so that a greater love, a greater truth can come online. Can come online. If we think we know the truth, the truth we know is way too small. And the truth we think we know is way too small. The truth does not fit in a box. Love does not fit in a box. Love does not have walls. Love does not love Mr. Biden and hate Mr. Trump. Love does not support the Democrats and not the Republicans. That is not love. That is division. That is division. And so I'm going to challenge all of you to look closely, to look deeply, to find, this may sound harsh, but to find your own arrogance. Your arrogance of where you think you are right and everyone else is wrong. Your party is right, your group is right. Your way is right. And I'm going to challenge you just to see and feel and experience the division within you. And to ask yourself a question that you know the answer to. Is this the truth? Is us against them the truth? Is me against the world the truth? And again, sometimes our othering is imploded. It's I'm the worst. Everyone else is good. Like sometimes we flip it. It's not that we think everyone's an idiot. We think we're the one and only idiot. Versus with true non-duality, we realize we're all of us are so confused in so many ways. So confused in so many ways. And so it is deeply healing to forgive humans for being human. And it's also deeply healing and deeply awakening to know right from wrong, up from down, and to begin walking in the right direction, the true direction, the direction of the truth, in the direction of God's will, in the direction of that which is higher. Human truths tend to be divisive. Divine truths are radically inclusive. Will have a quality of peace, a quality of love, a quality of strength, a quality of evolution in them, like higher evolution, of course. And so I received some fun emails. And so I just want to see if I can pull those up. Don wanted me to speak on something. He wanted me to address not only seeing all of life as divine, which he said I do a pretty good job at. He said I didn't do such a good job on the evolutionary view. And I hope today, Don, you could hear me speaking about the evolutionary view. Sometimes I just don't use, like often I use the word evolution and healing interchangeably. Like anything we're working on healing, that's a step in the direction of evolution. It's a step in the direction of evolution. And so sometimes my language is a little bit different. Okay, let's see what the question is here. This is what Don writes. He wrote a really long email, but I'm going to see if I can just kind of get the question out. Here's the part where I still question your attempts to give equal weight to all views. Yeah, I hope that's not what I'm doing, giving equal weight to all views. I'm going to illustrate what I'm talking about now with two subjects, climate change and gun control. And Don wrote me about gun control. What happened to the NRA? Money. Gun manufacturers contributed money to the NRA with explicit demand that in exchange, they switched their focus from supporting to opposing gun control. Climate change. What happened here? Money. Exxon, after being sued, admittedly having records going back to the 70s showing that pollution from fossil fuel extraction and use was a cause of cancer and asthma, etc., and was hastening climate change. In both cases, gun groups and the fossil fuel industries created national think tanks, funded massive advertising campaigns, funded political candidates, and in the case of the fossil fuel industry, funded a campaign to have local, state, and federal judges elected who would be willing to interpret the law in favor of weakening climate change legislation. So, yeah, but here's the thing, Don, that I'll say about both these issues. Well, maybe only one of the issues. The climate change issue, I believe both parties are doing the lobbying, are toying with numbers, are playing with statistics. And I don't think either, of the big views are correct. Like last year, maybe it was 2 or 3 years ago, I bought Greta's book and I got like really excited and really moved by her and listening to her speak. And I read her book and it's very inspiring and also just a very terrible worldview that we're all going to be extinct, just like in no time. In no time. And I grew up with this view in school. It's just like there's not going to be a world for any of us to live in. Now, I want to be crystal clear about, my feeling about climate change. If anyone's ever been to India, you just look out at one of those big cities and you see what's going on just with people, with human beings. And what we've done to the air, to the waters. I mean, my God, what we've just done. I read somewhere that whatever that chemical is that's in Roundup is like on every inch of the planet. It's on every inch of the planet just because it's gone up into the atmosphere and rained down. So from all the Arctic, to throughout the rainforest is covered, in this horrific chemical. The thing that I'm going to disagree with here is I'm not going to blame Republicans and the oil and gas industry for what you're saying here, Don, lying and deception. Everyone on planet Earth, like unless we're like some kind of in an Aboriginal tribe of some sort, everyone lies and deceives all day long. What's going on here on planet Earth is outrageous. Outrageous. Everything we buy is full of plastic. is contributing to climate change. Unless we are growing our own food and living off the land, like we are all raging hypocrites all day long. Are there things we can do? Absolutely. But who is actually doing them? Who is actually growing their food? Who is actually living off the land? Who is actually living in harmony with Mother Nature? Like who? Who? It's very easy to blame big oil. Every single one of us uses big oil. Big oil, I don't know if that's a thing. I'm mixing big oil, big pharma together, but like the oil and gas companies, every single one of us use it every day. Every day. And I love the newest movement from the Democrats is to get rid of gas ovens. It's like, okay, we're all going to be electric. Like, where does electricity come from? We're going to shut down oil and gas production. Beautiful. And we're going to shut down mining. Beautiful. Where are you going to get your lithium for your electric car? How are you going to power your electric car? All of us, I want to use a Christian word here. All of us are crazy sinners in regards to climate change. Al Gore is an immense sinner in climate change. Donald Trump, sinner. Me, you, all of us. Who is going to do something? Who is actually going to change? Who is willing to sacrifice? Like who? Who is willing? Say, yeah, I'm going to live in a teeny little cottage, a teeny little hut. I'm going to grow my own food. I'm going to live off the land. I'm going to live in harmony with nature. Like who? So I'm not going to play the game of othering. But do people lie and deceive? Yeah. All of us lie and deceive. We think that the plastic bottles that we use, if we put it in that blue dumpster, that it's recycled. It's not recycled. It's like 2% of the plastic is recycled. If that. If that. If that. Nobody wants to recycle plastic. It's cheaper just to make a bottle than it is to recycle it. I think the only thing that really is recycled anymore is maybe cardboard and aluminum. Aluminum is recycled at a huge degree because there's money in it. But human beings, we have a massive problem. And the problem is not the oil industry lying to us. The problem is us lying to us. Me lying to me. Me lying to me. That's our problem. Is we live in a way, I love this word that I heard last year, mass formation psychosis. We have it around recycling. We have it around climate change. And by that, what I mean by that around climate change, I'm not saying it's not happening. Climate change is happening. It's always happening. And yes, humans, of course, are a huge part of it. The mass formation psychosis is we lie to ourselves about recycling. We lie to ourselves about the food we eat. And we lie to ourselves about just everything. Everything. We drive a Tesla. It's like, where did that battery come from? Where did that battery come from? We can shut down all the oil and gas drilling in the United States. We can shut down all the mines in the United States. I hate mines. They're ridiculously polluting and destructive. We had a mine that was like 100 years old, about 40 miles from me. And the company, they went out of business, and they just left this mine there, and it started filling up with water and leaching water. And one day the mine like burst open, and my river turned into like a mustard yellow for a day. It's the most horrific thing to see. Like every fish in that river just died that day. Horrific. If we go out in the streets and chant and say, yeah, we should shut down all the mines and shut down all the oil and gas drilling. But if we continue to buy all the junk we buy and live in the way that we live, where are those things coming from? So much of the mining industry now is getting gobbled up by the Chinese. And if you look at their labor standards and what they do for our planet, it's like you think a mine here in the United States is bad. How about a Chinese mine in the Congo or in Sudan? Like, what hell world is that? And so like as human beings, it's like we don't look at nuance. We want to blame the other and say they are the ones that are wrong. We are the ones that are wrong. That's the truth. That's the truth. But how many of us are willing to change our diet, to eat low on the food chain, to live off the land, to actually farm? How many of us are willing to, I went to the farmer's market the other day, and I saw a pie. This is just a beautiful thing. And I looked at this delicious pie. And I was like, oh boy, like how much for this beautiful pie? I think it was $40. $40 for a pie. Or I could go across the street to like the big box supermarket, city market is what it's called, and get a similar pie with 800 ingredients in it for $3 or $6 or $8. It wasn't $40, but can we vote every day with our dollar? If we want our world to change, we'll vote with our dollar. With our dollar. But most of us, we complain with our mouths, just blaming and othering, which isn't going to help our planet to heal. Okay, let's see. There's a lot of question in that. Also, I think at some point Don asked me to speak about gun control. Yeah, I'm going to say it real quickly. Guns are bad. Guns are bad. Nobody needs them. Nobody needs them except for if, we're being invaded. And then it's like, we might want those. We might want those. Who needs guns? I'm just going to kind of just be a little harsh here, but like women in Afghanistan, like there's some people who need some guns. To take their power back, to get their rights back. But I watched this woman the other day. She was so beautiful. I can't remember if I shared this or not, but she was like an old grandma. She was an elder, and she was attempting to speak to the Taliban. Like she was speaking to, it was like the Taliban's press secretary or something. And so, this old woman, basically she was sitting down and she was talking. And again, I could have this wrong, but it's like the Taliban's press secretary or the Taliban's, whoever's in charge of the media or whatever. And the one was like pleading with him, saying, like, will you please open the schools again for the girls? Like, please, can we just have this? Please. And she is just making a good, solid, clear argument. You want the women to be educated. You want the women to be able to read. We want, like, women are equal human beings. She was going on and on about the Quran, talking about the equality of all beings. And, she was starting to change, this fellow's mind. Like he was stuck in his dogma, and he was saying, okay, like I agree. And it was this beautiful moment where she was having a conversation with, with men. We're going to handle this with guns. We're just going to shoot each other to death, and last one standing. That's the guy that gets to rule the world. But this woman, she had patience. She had deep patience for her oppressor. And my God, was it just this movement of ultimate compassion, unconditional love, unconditional strength, unconditional willingness just to sit, to hear the enemy. And she let him speak too. She was listening to him rant on and on about, whatever the law is. I think it's Shahira law, but I could have that wrong. But, he was going on and on about women this and women that. And she was like, no. Women are good. They deserve to go to school. They deserve to go to school. So she was speaking truth, the power, and she was doing it in a non-violent way. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about gun control. Like when I was a young teacher, I was teaching. I was probably 19 or 20 years old when I started teaching, and I was working in the high school, and I got this job working it was called night school. And so I started my day at like 3 in the afternoon. And as I was driving to work, this, of course, is like before the cell phone or before the smartphone, I was listening to the radio. And on the radio, it was like all the channels stopped. They said, hey, breaking news, there's been a shooting at a school in Colorado. Here I was a Colorado teacher, and I was listening. And the newscaster just went on and on about how many kids were shot and killed, and this horrific thing that happened. It was the first school shooting, the first like real school shooting, first school mass shooting. And I can remember just like being so utterly shocked. Just like sitting in my car. This little, it's like a 1990 Toyota Tercel wagon or something. Maybe it was an 89, 86. It was some old beater car, and one of those little dial radios, and just trying to get it so I could actually hear the radio. And I was just sitting in my car, just crying and crying and crying. And then I had to get it together and go in and teach. And it's just like, my God, what is wrong with us? What is wrong with us that this has become a part of our culture? Like from an absolute perspective, a gun is nothing more than a tool. We could say it's a tool for killing. But if you eat meat, if you're a hunter, I imagine most of the people listening eat meat. And it's a tool so that you can eat. That's what a gun is from one perspective. Another perspective, it's like, my God, it's a tool for mass murder. So are guns inherently wrong? No. Do we need them? Most of us do not. Most of us do not. But the thing about gun control is, to me, it's really an issue around education and around mental illness. We don't take care of the mentally ill. We don't take care of our children. Our schools are too big. There's bullies in our school. There's teachers who don't care. There's teachers who don't know their students. There's parents who don't know their kids. There's kids who have too much time on the internet. There's guns in the United States are way too easy to get. This is way too easy to get. Way too easy to get. But like anything in the human world, it's not oil that's a problem. It's not guns that are a problem. It's our relationship to them. And we can easily hate the NRA. We can hate Republicans. And we can hate lobbyists. But our culture needs to change on every level. Every level. Every level. And that's the work of the Sangha, is we start with ourselves. We start with ourselves and we look at, where am I spreading violence? Where am I spreading division? If we want this world to change, if we want the topic of gun control, like if we want to make a step in that direction, I'm going to say something crazy. Make friends with a redneck. make friends with people who own guns if you don't own them. And can you ask them first what their thoughts are, what their beliefs are? Now, I can tell you, I actually had this conversation the other day when I was at my local outdoor store that sells archery equipment and firearms. And, you know, the lady who owns the place, you know, she has the Trump hat and she has the Trump stickers and all that kind of stuff. And they're always in there talking about it. These Democrats, they're making laws and they're trying to, you know, do whatever. And so in Colorado recently, there was 2 laws that were passed. One was for a 3-day wait period to buy a firearm, which to me that seems very reasonable. And that you have to be 21. That you have to be 21. Which again, that seems very reasonable. Very reasonable. And, you know, they were arguing, they were saying, you know, I just heard him, you know, complaining about the 3-day rule. And I said, well, like, is it really that bad for you guys? Like, if, you know, like basically the customer, they'd come in and, you know, they'd whatever, try to buy the firearm, and then they'd come back 3 days later. I was like, actually, if you have a store and the person comes back twice, maybe they'll buy maybe they'll buy more stuff, you know, when they come back the second time. Like, that's a common thing if you go to the store. If I go to the grocery store on Monday and then I come back on Wednesday, I'm gonna buy some more things on Wednesday, you know. And so I was just kind of smiling, just talking to the guy, just seeing what he thought. And he said, yeah, no, like I understand that, but he said, when people come up from Texas and they're on a hunting trip and maybe they forgot something, or maybe their rifle broke and they, you know, maybe they're only here for the weekend. And he said that's a lost customer. I said, oh, okay, like I didn't think about that. But just a willingness for me to talk in a way and to just, it was a gentle challenge for him. Like, is it that big of a deal? Is it that big of a deal to wait 3 days? And for him as a business owner, it is a big deal. It says it's a loss of money. It's a loss of income for him and his family. And that, I understand that. I understand his perspective. But if I come at him with, you're wrong, you're a Trump supporter, school shootings are your fault, and you're a racist, like we're not going to have a good conversation. We're not going to have a good conversation. Somehow, in the last couple of years, anyone who voted for Trump is a racist. And it's like, that's not going to be healing. We need to find a way to start by listening, by hearing their perspective. And I've talked to so many gun owners who've had all kinds of perspectives. Like some, absolutely hate, what are those things called? Assault rifles. I think they're just, horrific things. And other people who just love them and just love them, just shoot them up all day, and they're shooting at targets. And it's just like, whatever, like that's what they are doing. And it's not a problem until it gets in the hands of someone mentally ill and goes and shoots up a school. And just like, for me to play around with my bow, it's not a problem for me to shoot an arrow at a target. If I shoot it at my neighbor, be in big trouble. Be in big trouble. It's going to cause a great deal of a problem. Now, of course, this view that, if we are sane and we're adult and we're mature and we keep everything locked up, then there's no problem at all. But come on now. It's just like with nuclear power. It's like nuclear power is a great idea. Great idea until there's a human error. Until there's a human error. And so ultimately, the world will change when we change. When we choose. When we choose to love. When we choose to take care of each other. When we choose to listen to each other. When we choose as a country to take care of the mentally ill. When we choose, like sometimes we don't see the kids. Like I can say this as a former school teacher. Most of the parents, they didn't see their child anymore. They just couldn't see their kid anymore. They saw if the kid was a problem and they throw him on pills. And sometimes the kid just has a lot of energy. Didn't want to be in a box called a school building. But no one saw him. Instead, they medicated him. And that medication screwed with his mind. And because he got in such a bad state in his mind, he decided to come to school and go crazy on everyone. I actually had some friends who went to Columbine during the shooting. It's horrific to hear their stories. Or it's going to make me burst out in tears right now. But I had a good friend. She went there. And it's like, my God, for anyone to have to live through that. And it's crazy. Like right now, like my daughter, she has those drills at school. She doesn't even know what they're for. It's called a lockdown. Luckily, they haven't actually told her what it's for yet. But it's like, it's a horrific thing. I had to expel a kid once because he told me he was going to come back and shoot a teacher. And it was just like, I love the kid. It wasn't that I expelled him. I had to tell the principal, and the principal expelled him. It broke my heart. I can still see that kid's face. I had great love for that kid. Tim was his name. He's a sweet kid, but he had some things, some demons in his head, just like many of us do. Like many of us do. This is a messy world. It's a confusing world. It's a beautiful world, and it's a dangerous world. And the invitation that I'm inviting for all of us is to get out of our political minds and to come into our hearts and to respond to life with love, with truth, and doing what you think is right, what you feel is the next step. You opening your heart and letting God speak through you, act through you, live through you. This is how our world will change. This is how the world will change. And Don, I want to let you know, like, I heard what you said clearly about Sri Aurobindo. I want to read it out loud, but I'm going to pick this apart. Sri Aurobindo quite powerfully and directly said, there's no possible way to look at what's happening and find very good people on both sides. He had, so that's in quotes, then Don writes, he had absolutely no hesitation in saying the anti-evolutionary forces were supporting Germany and the evolutionary forces were behind the Allies, period. No period. That's not the truth, my friend. That's not the truth. There are good people on every side. On every side. One of the reasons the Germans did, or let me back up. One of the reasons the Germans got themselves in the predicament they did with Mr. Hitler was because at the end of World War I, they were so utterly crushed and defeated. We made them completely and utterly wrong. The world made them completely and utterly wrong. The Germans are not evil people. The Germans got confused deeply because their power was taken away. It's one of the things that happens when we try to skip an evolutionary step. And if we play the other game, they are all bad, all wrong. They're going to have just total defeat. And at some point they revolted. They said, no, we will stand and we will be strong again. And under that confusion of them trying to get in touch with their power again and trying to find their dignity again, they got swept away by not someone who was evil, but someone who was a sociopath, someone who was mentally ill, someone who is mentally ill. We could call that evil. But at the end of the day, someone who is a sociopath or a psychopath, someone who's a lunatic is a lunatic. But are they evil? It depends on what you mean by evil. It's horrific, absolutely. Maybe he was evil. It was evil what he did. It was horrific what he did. It was, of course, absolutely wrong. And yes, it was I want to use this word, anti-evolutionary. It was absolutely wrong. But there's a reason often why people do the wrong thing. And in this case, it was a mix of loss of power. And I'm going to use that big word again, mass formation psychosis. For some reason, that word's making me smile. We all went through it, I think, maybe last year with COVID. We're still going through it with COVID. You know, we play that same game. Like, we have the biggest cartels on planet Earth ruling Washington. The biggest drug cartels on planet Earth are not in Mexico and not in Colombia, but in the United States. In the United States. And are they evil? Like, are any of these people evil? I have a hard time with evil. In an evolutionary world, there really isn't evil. There are people who are mentally ill. There are people who are deranged. There's people who are deeply hurting. Ultimately, all beings are growing out of our animal nature into human nature. And eventually, we outgrow human nature and into divine nature. And that's what I'm inviting for all of us. That's what I'm inviting for all of us. But anytime we look at someone, we say they're evil or they're wrong or they're other. That is anti-evolutionary. Is what that is. But there are some people who are like, we can say from a place of wisdom and discernment, like, oh yeah, like there's some people who are doing some things that are really bad and really terrible and not good for our planet, not good for each other, not good for humanity. I mean, to me, one of the greatest things we can do is just to be a bright light, to be a loving human being, to be a compassionate human being, to raise good children, to be in good relationships, to be kind, to be forgiving, and to courageously choose to walk in the direction of peace and love and growth and strength and unity. But that's going to require a lot of forgiveness, a lot of forgiveness. But this word period, like saying period, now we're playing with I'm right, I'm wrong, and you're wrong. The Allies are right, the Germans are wrong. There's a lot of Germans who are just good people who are stuck in a mess. Just like with Ukraine and Russia, there's a lot of good Russians and there's a lot of good Ukrainians. There's a lot of good Russians killing good Ukrainians. It's like, because where they're at in history, where they're at geographically, where they're at just in this, like there's some boys there and some girls, some people shooting each other who have good hearts, who feel like they are stuck on the Russian side or the Ukrainian side or whatever side it is. Whatever side it is. The invitation here is for sides to disappear. For sides to disappear. And I'm not saying we just accept everything. No, we are always working toward love. We are always working towards healing. We're always working toward a greater tomorrow, a greater today, because that's the evolutionary nature of God. We walk in the direction of that which is greater. And it'd be very easy for us, to look at the Nazis and say, how could they have done that? I want us all just to pause for a moment and look at what we did the last 2 or 3 years. And I'm just comparing just getting lost in a worldview, just getting lost in fear. I saw the most hilarious thing the other day on Instagram. It was at the height of the pandemic. There was a fisherman in California, and he was standing out on the beach. The beach was absolutely empty. I don't know if any of you remember, but remember when we shut down nature? It's like no one's allowed to go outside. How crazy is that? In California, they took sand and filled the skate parks because they didn't want those dirty skateboarders spreading COVID-19 everywhere. It's like, how crazy were we as human beings? Like, how many of us, we wore our mask, we heard someone cough, and we looked at that person in the store that they were they were the devil or whatever. But this fisherman, he was in California, in LA somewhere. He was standing on the beach, and it was 2 or 3 policemen came out to arrest him for standing on the beach by himself, fishing. And the beautiful thing was, when the police were walking up to him, and he was standing so still, just being a good fisherman, standing so still, and they walked up to him to put him in jail for not following the lockdown. And he was a scarecrow. He was a scarecrow. He was a scarecrow. So the police went to go arrest a scarecrow on the beach. And it just made me smile. It made me smile. Like, whoever did that, just, oh my God, it's like, God bless that person for standing for freedom, for not giving in to the craziness of this world. The craziness of this world. I can tell you, like, even myself, like when COVID first came out, I had the rubber gloves and the masks. We were cleaning the groceries off from the supermarket. I mean, we all got crazy. We all got crazy. And so it's so easy to point the finger and say, how could one culture go so crazy like that? We went crazy. We went crazy. And we still go crazy in all kinds of ways. The invitation this day is to wake up out of craziness. To wake up out of craziness and to wake up into the truth. Okay. I see I've gone way over time, but Tanya's here. Tanya, are you here? Do you have a question? You have something you want to share?
Greg, I was just listening about Ukraine and Russia, your view, your point of view. I would say I don't agree with everything that you said, because I'm witnessing it.
Of course.
I am a part of it. And how I see it from here the Russian culture and the Russian people, my family including, which I cut off ties with my brother and his family because of it. That is very similar to Germany. So, and I can tell, I mean, what I see in people, it's the hatred was waking up very easily in them by the psychopath or sociopath. So are they good or bad? These people bad? I don't know, but they had those who are doing this now to Ukrainian people who didn't do anything wrong to them are they have so much hatred, they have so much there's, I don't know, I call them bad.
Tanya,
that's why I got stuck in my spiritual.
No. Let me agree with you fully, my dear. So I was trying to point out that there can be good people on both sides. Of course, like there's been Russian soldiers that have been forced to go off to war, just like there's been Ukrainian soldiers forced to go off to war. And maybe neither of them want to fight, but both of them being put in a position of having to fight or to be killed or thrown in jail or whatever it is. And so I want to be clear here. I'm not saying that everyone fighting is good. That's absolutely not the truth, of course. And then also I'd like to take a moment here and acknowledge, that the U.S. has been, of course, a big part of creating the war, continuing the war. The U.S. has this huge agenda in supporting this, and again, like I had these good friends who were refugees from Ukraine. They became my neighbors, and my daughter plays with them all the time, and it's horrific what they lived through. Horrific. Absolutely, my dear. Absolutely. So forgive me for not being clear And I want to be crystal clear. Of course, there's horrific Nazis, terrible things, horrific things, just murderous things. And I spoke a little bit about that on the retreat. But you're right. You're right. So thank you for correcting me, because sometimes I speak in a way that's flowery and misses the point. So thank you. Yeah. Thank you. And Tanya, I want to tell you, it's been a long time since I've seen you. It's nice to have you. Nice to have you back.
I'm so glad to be back.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
I was very busy with
No,
on my
a
fast.
lot going on. Yeah. And it's, I think one of the things we could do, everyone, before we're done tonight, is I'm going to invite us all to close our eyes and invite this redemptive love to flow into Ukraine, to flow into Russia, to flow into the United States, to flow into the NATO parties, just to flow into our world, inviting a greater peace, a greater solution, a greater healing, inviting love to triumph, peace to triumph, compassion to triumph, truth to triumph. Inviting the forces of love to flow into our world, to bring forth unity, to bring peace where there is hatred, to bring love where there is hatred, to bring clarity where there is insanity. May God's will triumph in our hearts, in our neighbors' hearts, in this world, now and forevermore. May God's will be done. May human beings, God, please give us the strength to change, to heal, to grow, to uplift, to stop being imbeciles, to stop killing each other. Help us, God, to find another way to live in unity, in peace, in love, in happiness and joy. May bliss triumph. Bliss triumph here on planet Earth. Bliss is our nature. Bliss is the nature of this world. May bliss triumph. And so lovely to be with all of you. Thank you, Tanya, so much for speaking up. Thank you for correcting me. And by all means, please, everyone, forgive me. Sometimes I say things that are a little flowery, or because I just feel so much love in my heart. I feel so much hope for our world. And I have faith that all human beings have the ability to change. All human beings. And I do know that some human beings are legitimate psychopaths and are legitimately stuck in hell. And they might not change anytime soon, but I pray for their souls. I pray for all souls. I pray for all of us. And so, please forgive me. I love you all. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Good night, everyone. Bye for now.